So we're going to do our 2026 ladder predictions here. We've had the draft and the rookie draft and all of that kind of stuff. So we kind of know the players that have come in. We've had the trade period as well. So we can start making assessments.
That's a good point.
On 2026. So, Jesse, how are we going to do this, mate?
Well, I've come up with my 18. You've come up with your 18. And I suppose we can go through clumps of the ladder, perhaps.
Yes.
We can start maybe at the bottom.
That's like where clumps, don't you?
I do. I told you that in private. Oh, God. I don't even know what that means. So I'll just ensure that our producer is ready for this segment. But we are going to work through probably starting from the bottom of the ladder because
that's
there
where
we go.
Both our teams.
Oh, it looks so ready right now.
We're going to start at the bottom of the ladder because that's where both of our teams exist.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what everyone's here for. Who's going to finish below West Coast? I wonder. No one. Was this hard for you?
Yes. Yeah, harder than I expected. And I think it probably will change over the New Year period.
Yeah, totally.
You need those rumours. I need to see who's tearing up the track, tearing the house down.
Yeah. Mind you, I mean, the Bulldogs had a bit of a crisis in their preseason last year, and I know they eventually finished ninth, but for a good portion of the season, they were a very good team. It didn't really hold them back too much. So sometimes we get a little misled about how the preseason sounds like it's going. And the thing about last year is there's a bunch of teams that I'm still not sure exactly where they sit because they had injury and fitness concerns.
Okay.
Like some of the middle tier teams, I think.
Give me some names just for reference.
How bad are, say, Carlton and Port Adelaide? Really?
Yeah, I mean, I think the difference with those two teams compared to, say, a Sydney Swans, without getting into it too much, is like a lot's changed for them postseason as well.
Yeah.
Right? As far as like players going out and stuff like that. So I think they certainly underperformed for what their expectations of themselves were, but they've also lost some players now and things have changed dramatically. And I think they've kind of gone into that rebuild mode a little bit more. So I think that'll affect their rankings. Who have you got in the bottom four?
This is tough because I'm only confident about two of them, and the other two I think could easily miss the four. But I have West Coast winning the Spoon again next year. I don't think there has been enough there to really improve the things that are in need of the most improvement at West Coast, to put it simply. I think the talent coming in is good, and I think some of the players we've traded for are good, but I don't think we've gotten better at the things we really needed help in, namely midfield and scoring power. So
how much do you think of an effect these guys such as Schoenberg and McRae and Robertson, do you think they're going to have much of an impact on output?
No, I do think that our midfield is so bad that we probably use one of them, and I think the most likely is Devon, in my opinion. I think he probably comes in as another Jack Graham and just like a bit of stoppage ability and a bit of defensive effort as well around that space. I think does improve the team. You got Yo and Waterman coming back into the team. I think they'll be a better team than last year, but don't forget there was a big gap, I think. Maybe one win probably did us a little bit dirty, whereas, in a year where we won 3 games, I thought we were worse.
You certainly should have beaten us when we played in Bunbury, but yeah, there was still some poor performances, weren't there?
Yeah, I still think the favourite to finish last.
Yeah, so, I've got you there as well, so I think we're both even on that one, pretty much for the same reasons, and I don't think the draft is going to move the needle yet.
Yeah, that's right. So should I give you the rest of my bottom four?
Yeah.
Yeah, should we do it like that? I had Melbourne second last, and then Richmond in 16th, which is the one I don't feel good about, and Essendon in 15th I didn't feel good about either. I think
quite similar.
Okay.
Quite similar. You continue, sorry, with that thread.
Yeah, if you want me to, yep. I think Richmond probably have more quality established players than Melbourne now.
Yeah, wow.
I think Max Gawn could carry the team, as he so often does.
Yep.
But with Petrarca and Oliver out, and I think that midfield now is going to be more exposed than before, and Viney and Steele probably don't move the needle enough on their own. I think they're going to be more exposed than before, and I still think they're in a good spot with like how they've drafted and stuff, but I think Richmond bat a little bit deeper in terms of who's ready-made, and now the leg speed stuff that's come in, I actually think they'll finish 16th, and I think they could even finish higher than that, to be honest.
Devil's advocate on Melbourne, and I've got them a little bit higher than you do. Not too much, to be fair, so it's not a massive gap, but they've still got established leaders in the team in Viney, and Jack Steele comes in and gives them something probably similar to what a Clayton Oliver did in the last couple of years anyway. They've got Stephen May and Jake Lever in the back half of the ground. They've got some nice talent emerging, albeit they lost Judd McVie. You look at the midfield players, like if one of those guys pops, like a Rivers or a Windsor, Harvey Langford could go to another level. Josh Lindsay even, who's going to play a different role. They've got
Xavier.
Cozzy. What did I say?
Josh.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Xavier Lindsay. Cozzy Pickett, another one that's an absolute game winner for them in the front half of the ground. The forward line is a little bit weak, but they bring in Brody Mychek. And I think just more than any of that stuff, I think they're just going to have a little bit, they're going to play with a bit of freedom and creativity with a new coach, a bit of a new group, and not those same faces that are consistently around, and still have a decent balance of leadership and youth for me to not finish that low.
Yeah, I mean, leadership, yes, but like Jack Steele's, for an example, like comes in and is great for maybe the list build, but I don't know, like him and maybe especially if he's playing alongside Viney in the same midfield, I think that's a little bit slow for a start, and I think it's still early for the Langford, Windsor and stuff to really pop and move the needle. Now, Cozzy Pickett is an outlier. He's an absolute star, and Trent Rivers probably does have a lot of upside still.
I mean, Gawn and Pickett are the two top liners. That's still right. Top liners, right?
Yeah, but then again, when we're doing a prediction, I have to factor in how vulnerable are they to injuries. I think they're as vulnerable as anyone else in the competition. If they miss Max Gawn, they miss Cozzy Pickett, I think it's curtains.
Max Heath steps in.
True, yeah.
Wins the Brown.
Tom Campbell's still there? I don't even know, yeah.
No, it's a fair shout. I guess my argument to that would be I'm not suggesting that they finished top 8. I've got them in 14th.
Yeah.
So just outside the bottom 4. And who were the other ones in your bottom 4?
I had Essendon, Richmond above Melbourne, and I think Essendon 15th. I didn't feel good about this one, honestly. I think there is a little bit of a bias against Essendon because of their injuries. This always happens. We did it with Richmond.
Yep.
And to some extent we did it with the West Coast because they bounced up after that. And Essendon's probably in the same boat, but I also think maybe for a start I couldn't put anyone below them, and I feel bad about that. But also there is going to be a push towards the youth again with 3 first-rounders playing round 1. So I can see the ingredients there. Yeah, absolutely. Essendon are a tricky one because of that. They've still got a lot of those mid-season draftees on the list from last year as well. True. I have got them in 16th, the Bombers. I've got Port Adelaide down in 17th on the ladder. This is... Maybe I've gone slightly too drastic on the 2026 season because there are still some really strong players there, but it's a new coach that we haven't seen before that can go one of two ways. You can get a bounce and go up the ladder, but I just don't think this squad is good enough to do that, and I think it's going to become really mentally difficult for them to kind of fight through. If they have like a poor start to the season, they know Zach Butters is leaving, Jason Horne-Francis is injured again in the preseason. I'm running out of names that are seriously good players that could lift this up because guys, the key position players and half-backers and stuff, they've just lost everyone. Everyone is getting out of that team, and I worry for them spiritually. Who have they really lost other than Houston over the last couple though? But who are their back flank? Like who moves the ball for them from the back flank? Bergman, depending on where exactly he settles. Because he plays a bit of wing. Yeah. Kane Farrell, ball use. He's not a great player though, is he? No, not great, but not like that bad. I wouldn't have thought. They got to offer the opposite opinion. I don't think Port crumbles that badly. I thought this year they were quite injury depleted, particularly in their forward line. And I do agree that the list balance is not great. But if we're talking about competitiveness next year, teams with Butters, Rosie, and Horne-Francis, Georgiades, even Alir is a rock solid key defender. I don't think they're going to be bad enough, to be honest. A few people agreeing with you in the comments. Yeah, I think this year was poor. I don't see any real reason for it to get worse. However, as you said, the things that you can't really foresee are like what's the culture and vibe like at the club, especially, you highlighted the Butters leaving thing, players checking out. It is possible that happens, and that's the stuff you can't predict. But if I'm going on list quality, I rate the other teams below them. Yeah, I think on pure list quality, you're probably right with those players. But yeah, I'm probably bringing in a few intangibles there with the culture stuff. Who's their ruckman? Who's going to play ruck? Sweet. Yeah, Solder's still there, isn't he? Yeah, he's still there. Yeah, he didn't leave. That's right. That was one been talked about a little bit, but no, evidently didn't happen. Yeah, Jordan Sweet. Yeah, not a lot of hope for the future too with the draftees. Obviously, not bringing in anyone this season. That's the way I've gone. And then so I've got Port Adelaide in 17th. I've got Essendon in 16 and Richmond in 15, which we've kind of covered already for the most part. Yeah. So sorry, repeat that again. Which Port Adelaide in 17th. Yeah. Essendon in 16th. Yeah. And Richmond in 15th, which rounds out my bottom 4. Gotcha. So we've just deviated on Melbourne. You said you had Melbourne 14th. Yep. So I think we've covered that. I had North Melbourne in 14th.
Yeah, right.
Which, I can tell by your reaction, you would have loved it to be higher a little bit.
Yeah, then again, I've got them in 13th.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
So they're not too far apart.
I would say 14th is still good linear improvement, though.
I mean, it is linear improvement. Yeah. What do we finish? 16th to 14th.
Yeah.
It's small steps. I think at some point you're going to have to get some bigger jumps from some major players in that team. I think some of these guys, like we really need a bit more out of Wardlaw for him not to get injured this season. LDU needs a really, really big year this season. And more importantly, I think some of these key position players that are coming through, like we need partners for players like Charlie Comben. We have to start trying to get, guys, in my opinion, like Dylan Stevens had an okay year last year, but probably recycling through. I hope Mukunda gets games. Zach Banch is another small forward I hope gets games, and then Lockie Doveston, and I hope we can see Threadgold at the top level. I'd like to see all of these draftees get some time at the top level. I want to see Sullivan go to another level as well. I think North should be in the conversation at points throughout the season to be pushing for that 10th place, which is now the wild card spot.
Oh, true. Yeah. Yeah, I can see that happening. It'll be their ability to beat the teams better than them that ultimately what it comes down
Which
to.
has eluded us for so long.
Yeah, because, they could beat Essendon. Well, they might not. They didn't beat Essendon this year.
Who's got a better team? North Melbourne or Essendon?
I need to see them next to each other,
I know.
to be honest. I think they're both pretty young. So there's probably not much separating them for youth now that Essendon's had this kind of off-season as well.
In theory, though, like a Wardlaw, LDU, Sheasel, McKercher. You could throw Zane Dersmer in there. I think I'm even missing some still. Like Powell goes through there as well for North Melbourne. That realistically should beat Essendon's midfield, I feel.
It should, but it hasn't.
No.
I know that's a lame response, but that's kind of what I lean on a little bit as well. It's just we haven't seen North do that. But I am predicting a 2-spot jump as well. I'm just not convinced it needs to be a big one, although I accept you also put them in 13th. We're not really talking about a big difference in our opinions here, to be honest, are we?
Bastard.
Yeah.
So who have you got in 13th?
In 13th spot, I have Carlton in no man's land. Losing Curnow, bringing in some established players. It's a lot of unknowns with their ins. I think Hayward is a known quantity, and so is Florent to some extent. Campbell Chester, I do think there's some upside there, not as a genuine playmaker, but like with his speed, in the same way I've talked about other players in this particular stream today. I think he can carve out a role and actually help their ball movement a fair bit. I did think we saw a big improvement from him. But outside of that, I think there's enough established quality there, but there's a lack of trust with Carlton to really win enough games next year to really push up. And I just have other teams going ahead of them.
So I had them in 12th overall, so one position higher than you, similar to North Melbourne. But mainly the thought process for me with Carlton is I actually love the moves that they've made. I think they're really transitioning and got ahead of where things were going. I think they could have kind of got stuck with their feet in the mud a little bit here, but they got rid of Curnow. TDK went out the door and they sort of made the best of that situation. And now with Cody Walker and Harry Dean and these guys coming through, they can sort of rebuild again. But I don't really see them moving too much from what they did last season because all of the positivity is sort of for the future, right?
Agreed. I 100% agree with everything you said. Yeah.
I do think the Curnow loss won't be as big as what people think it's going to be because I think Mackay, he'll just lift.
Yeah.
He'll just do better when he is the focal point in that forward line. Hayward's a nice little foil for him as well, whereas Curnow, I should say, I always get that wrong, is more like he's going to take more away from a Mackay, where I think Hayward can be more complementary.
Yeah, okay. Interesting.
And overall, the squad is a little bit more balanced. I agree with Carlton on that, but I don't think it's necessarily going to, like, the quality that they brought in isn't going to move the needle.
No. Especially if they're trying to, because they've, been a pretty stoppage-focused team and contested ball side. If they're, admittedly, while I think that Chester could come in and help their ball movement, it is hard to really shift when you've got a team playing a style for a period of time, right?
And we saw it with Melbourne. And the one thing that teams that have drastically changed game plan usually change their coach. Michael Voss
That's true.
is still there. So it's going to be the same. We're going to go into this season in a similar vein to Simon Goodwin went in with Melbourne. Different circumstances, of course. But I think there's going to be those calls of like, is Voss the right man to like lead this next brigade forward. We're going to get that all over again in
Yeah.
2026. So still quite low for them. It got them in 12th. What's your next sort of batch?
I had Port Adelaide next. It's probably part of this batch still of. I'd be surprised to see them really push it into the 8s. I mean, maybe the 10's possible. Again, probably we kind of already covered them. I defended them a little bit on the fact that their star quality is still good, albeit it's not deep. There's a lot of role players in that team and a lack of real punch. But I think there's still too many good players to finish too low. Honestly, you could probably flip a coin between Port and Carlton, but I can't help but think they played each other this year and Port slaughtered them, if I'm not mistaken.
Carlton.
Yeah.
It's so hard with doing those sorts of things though, because like Port Adelaide slaughtered Hawthorn.
That's a great point. Very good point. No, I know that in isolation is not a strong argument, but I think they're in similar positions, and in summary, I think Carlton did handle their off-season perhaps better than Port Adelaide. I guess we'll see in time, but they certainly appeared more proactive than Port Adelaide. Carlton beat Port late in the season, though. There you go. My point was stupid. Yeah, people say bad argument. It was a bad argument. Maybe I just couldn't help get that little bias out of my head. I think it's pretty line ball between these two sides. I just went Port Adelaide higher.
I think that's a fair call, but I disagree.
Yeah, I know you do. Yeah,
but let's move on. My next group there, like as I said, Carlton in 12th, and then I've got St Kilda coming in 11th. I found them a very difficult team overall to rate. There's a lot of change. There's a lot of quality that's been added into that team, and I think you could mount an argument that on quality they push for even top 4, I think at the top end of that range that they could go. But at the same time, teams that do have an off season like this, how often does it all just gel really, really quickly and they just go bang? I feel like they're going to need a season of just feeling everything out, having that connectiveness between each other and on the field. It's too much change too quickly for me.
Yep. I had St Kilda in 11th too. I have similar logic. I think it'll be longer. It's more of a 2 to 3 year build, I think, with all their acquisitions. Not to say that CDK and Flanders and Silvani and Ryan, I suppose, is the fourth one, don't all add something. But I think for me, what's going to really move the needle for them is when their batch of recruits over the last 4 years, namely, we know Nazai is good, but, Philippou, Travalia, Taru.
Jevon when he comes back.
Yeah, Jevon when he comes back. I think those sorts of players might be the ones that they need to mature first before I put them in the finals.
I totally agree with you. I don't know if you mentioned Darcy Wilson then.
I didn't. I was struggling a little bit there.
He's another one. Just needs a big preseason.
Yeah. Mitch Owens, I still think has a lot of upside.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. And we haven't seen the best of Max King either.
Oh, yeah. Great call. Yeah, that's probably worth mentioning here. I think he could actually be a needle mover next season. I think the Saints have really struggled with their conversion from inside 50s to scores for a number of years now. And that's with Max King in the team and Jack Higgins, who's kicked a lot of goals. But yeah, I think once we see them tidy up a little bit of that, their forward efficiency, that will be also something that takes them to the next level. But there was a big gap last year. I don't know if I wasn't willing to put them top 6. I think people are going early on that.
Oh, for sure. And also, you don't know, this part of the ladder, it's usually a bit of a log jam, isn't it? I know we had a very separated ladder this season, but it can get pretty tight down there as well. In 10th position, so this is the first finals position in a way with the wildcard round, which is incredible. Collingwood sneak in for me. So quite a large drop off there from a top 4 team, a prelim final team. Just hard to see how they get better with the players that they've brought in the off season. And then the other part to that, how do they not decline when they lose players like Brody Mychek as well? I think is a really, really underrated and important part of their team. It's difficult to see them pushing for that top 4 spot, and you could see them even missing the finals or the wildcard positions.
Agreed. I think they're simultaneously too good a team to really fall apart, but I think it is a concern, obviously, how all their veterans are a year older next year, and then also the scoring power part with Mychek. They have relied heavily on him. I think he won their leading goal kicker for so many years in a row. And what are the odds Elliott has another year like that?
That's what I was going to say. Elliott played so well in 2025, and it's hard for a guy. It's kind of like Liverpool. I had to throw a soccer reference in here, but Liverpool went that one extra year now with Salah, and now he's really started to struggle. Yeah, even after an incredible year.
Yeah. Look, they could unearth a Charlie West and is Harvey Harrison still there? I think he is.
Well, I said
Ed Allen,
earlier in the
there's some
season,
upside.
it had to be, if they were going to improve in 2026, it has to be from Will Hayes, Charlie West, these kind of players. The reality is, though, those guys are picks in the 40s and 50s.
Seems unlikely.
They've been a team that's been really, really good at converting those kind of players, but is it too soon for guys that got drafted? Their development will probably kick in 2 years with those guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Not in 2026.
But I think they'll be a hard team to beat. So I can't remember if I said it out loud, but I also had them in 10th.
I bloody knew Rogie would be in the chat straight after that.
After the Charlie
I could feel his presence.
Yeah, what was the timing? It actually crossed my mind when I said Charlie West. I was like, I wonder if Rogie's in here.
Rogue. I'm sorry, mate.
That's cool. So we both had Collingwood 10th?
Yep, that's finals.
Yep, that's true.
You're in there.
Yep.
Next, I had the GWS Giants.
I also had the GWS Giants.
Seriously?
Yeah, that's weird.
So how many, can we just have a little recap here of the bottom teams?
Yep.
How many did we actually have different? Port was a big one.
We had West Coast the same.
Melbourne.
And...
Melbourne was a different one.
Yeah. No, we disagreed on Melbourne. So, it's just West Coast, St Kilda and Collingwood in the exact same spot. But there is I'd say the biggest deviation so far, I just put Adelaide.
Yep.
And that's it, really.
And a slight one on Melbourne.
Oh, on Melbourne. Yeah, true.
Yeah, exactly. Interesting. So, GWS 9th, why are they... I suppose that's about where they finished, didn't they? They finished in 8th, played Hawthorn in the first round of the finals.
It wasn't 8th, it was 6th because they hosted Hawthorn. We finished 7th.
Oh, they did too.
Fremantle hosted Gold Coast.
They sat in that position for a long time, though, that 8th position. It was... The logjam was there.
For me, I think it's less about like what happens on field, not on field, but like what happens internally with the Giants. Oh, sorry. Let me start that again. They haven't made too many list changes. They brought in Clayton Oliver. For me, what will dictate how they bridge the gap from where they were to where they need to be is just the consistency and the ability to stop run-ons in particular. Now, they were one of the more devastating teams for getting run-ons, but in terms of scoring. But throughout the year, there were a number of times they just couldn't stop the opposition scoring. They got slaughtered by the Bulldogs, didn't they? Yeah. That was an absolute belting. I think that in the Hawthorn final.
I was going to say, they got belted in games that were actually ended up being close games as well. Like I think a number of games where like they would do the belting and then somebody else would belt them. It's all momentum.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah.
They were a very frustrating side from that point of view. Whilst entertaining, I lost a bit of trust with them.
Yep.
Not so much from a talent point of view. So it remains to be seen. I think they're a very well-run club and a well-run team.
Yeah.
But I don't really have faith in them to really push into the 8. I couldn't justify them over other teams, which might be contentious because they did play finals this year, but I'm iffy on them.
I felt the same. I probably lost a little bit of trust at the back end of the year, just they weren't not being able to handle those moments. And I actually think Darcy Jones is going to be a massive out for them.
Yeah.
I think he's such a fire starter with his speed and creativity inside forward 50. They'll get Daniels back, but I think Darcy Jones was the guy that did a lot of that creativity. So
yeah, he killed us.
Yeah, like devil's advocate would be that Oliver comes in and he helps their stoppage game considerably. But I don't really like Oliver and Tom Green being in the same midfield. I think like they're a little bit too similar, look a bit the same as well.
Yeah.
Like
we don't like that.
Yeah.
Look, there is also some upside players that could come in and really make a difference. So, when I say come in, I mean Cadman and Callahan did have good years, but they could also still improve. They were both high draft picks.
Decline.
That's true. Yeah. They got some other high draft picks like Goddard hasn't played a game. They haven't really scratched the surface of some of these guys they've drafted. So I think there's some potential for players to come in, unlike, say, a Collingwood.
The back line's rock solid.
Yeah, no doubt about
Buckley
that.
and Taylor.
Yeah, no doubt about that. So Oscar Taylor will come in, but overall, I see them stagnating a little bit, albeit I'm sure it's heading somewhere good. They'll be back in the 4 eventually.
Oh, for sure. They're one of those teams that could have a drop-off year and then...
Yeah, they are undoubtedly in transition, so I don't think it'll happen over the next couple. But
so now we move on to the top 8. Mm-hmm. We've just had a lot of similar teams. Does that mean that we have exactly the same teams outside the top 8?
Yeah, we must do.
That is interesting.
I wonder how many teams we had coming in and out of the 8.
I'm really interested here because
I've got a funny feeling I've made one change to the 8.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
When you've done it wrong?
No, just that like I've only predicted one team to change in the top 8, which statistically is unlikely. It seems to be more than that.
We did have a season though where there was never a bigger gap
Yeah.
between the bottom teams and the top teams. So it will be harder for them to bridge that.
Very good
we
point.
kind of have to, we're going to have to transition into a period here with the ladder where we start to look at the top 6 as the top part of the ladder, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a top 6 and then a sort of bottom 4 of the 10.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah. Interestingly.
That's true.
I had in this position the Adelaide Crows, and I assume you're not going to have them quite as low as me. I feel they were that team that had the biggest bounce in 2025, and there's just going to be a natural progression of them sort of like coming back to the pack a little bit. They finished top of the ladder after being 15th.
Yes.
I want to say the year before that. Like that's an incredible rise. And I just think they caught a lot of teams off guard with their quality, and that's going to teams who have done their work on them. I think they played pretty straight line footy with kicking to those tolls. That's not going to be as successful in 2026, and it's going to bring them back. They'll have to change a lot, and they haven't really, other than Cal Archie and the draftees, there's probably not a huge amount of growth there for them.
Sounds like a band. Kalachi and the draftees. Sorry,
good.
Intrusive thoughts.
So
Just
good.
completely ruin your flow again.
No, that's good. I was finished anyway. So yeah, essentially, like I don't see a lot of, I suppose, improvement. There may be some internal improvement with some younger guys. Saligo's probably still got another level to go to, and they might get a bit out of Draper. But essentially, it's going to be the same team.
Yeah. I had Adelaide in 7th, and I had the Western Bulldogs in 8th.
Oh, well, I had the inverse of that.
Okay, there you go. So we're very similar in that front. Look, starting with Adelaide, I guess I feel similarly. It doesn't feel like they're entrenched in that top 4, and particularly with their finals performances, maybe there will be some chinks, and I just don't know if they have the midfield to really bat deep. But I mean, if I'd said that at the start of the year, I would have been wrong. So we could be wrong on them. They do have a lot of firepower, but I think I have them stabilising or consolidating their top 8 spot, but I think there are other teams that may go past them next year, especially if they get a harder fixture, which I haven't actually analysed, and they become the hunted a little bit more.
I like that. The Western Bulldogs for me in 7th position. I just think they'll have a little jump. They finished 9th last year, remember? Yep. I think sometimes people forget that, but
it could have been 5th though. It was one of those years where it's hard to fixate too much on that.
Exactly. I still think there's a lot of deficiencies in that team, but they've got too many good players to finish much lower than this.
Yeah.
If you've got Sam Darcy in a team, if you've got Marcus Bontempelli, Ed Richards, Joel Frazier, just so many quality names, Waitman will come back into that side and give them a real presence from a small forward perspective. There's still Riley West who's there. There's so many names that I'm not even mentioning here. I mean, Treloar's still on the list, right? Liberatore.
Yes, yeah, he is, yeah.
You know, they're still a part of that midfield mix. It bats so deep and it has so many different types of players. The one big problem for them has been, I think, defensive distribution and key position defenders. So it's kind of all coming from that part of the ground. They get Carmichael, and they did get another guy in the mid-season draft last year as well, Selwood. I think he can maybe come in and play a little bit depending on how he goes in the preseason.
They should hire him at Bunnings.
Selwood. What was that?
Because we self-timber.
Selwood. Yeah. Good.
Sorry.
Good stuff.
Thanks, man.
Well done.
I agree with everything you just summarised about the Bulldogs, so I won't add too much more. I suppose there's still some upside from guys like Joel Frazier. And I think Sam Darcy also has some upside. Like we still haven't seen him in his peak. The backline question marks could be answered by an O'Donnell and a Buslinger continuing to develop. So maybe the answer's within, but in summary, I couldn't bet on that. And I think they'll finish like too good to not be a good team.
Yeah.
As lame as that sounds, but they were a good team this year and finished 9th. So I have them in the 8. But I think they'll be aiming to finish higher than that, to be honest. And as for the Crows, I think I said the same. Well, I do kind of agree. Actually, no, I did cover my Crows analysis. I had them in 7th and the Bulldogs in 8th. Yeah. So now we are down to our top 6.
This is going to be interesting how many of these are in different positions. And the 6 is now particularly important. As I said before, we've kind of got this new ladder system where there'll be a wildcard round between 7 and 10. So I have in the final position here, in 6th position, I have the Fremantle Dockers.
As did I.
Seriously? Yeah, okay. Which is, again, it's probably, where did they finish last year? 5th.
Yes. Yeah. Again, like that could have been ninth. It's not taking anything away from them. They well and truly earned their final spot. I'm just more speaking to the evenness of it. Like it wasn't a big gap between some of those positions.
Yeah.
And they lost their first final.
They had I've said this a few times with the Dockers, like they had a very vibesy season, it felt like to me. And I don't mean that to take anything away from them. I think they handled...
It does sound disrespectful.
It does, doesn't it? They handled moments really, really well. And I think that's kind of the step that they took in 2025. But they won a lot of close games and you're not always going to get that opportunity, I suppose, over consistent seasons to be in those situations to win close games. So you can kind of, I suppose, extrapolate that they'll lose a couple more of those close games that they did in 2025. The fixture might tighten up for them a little bit and they're not going to be able to afford to lose those games that they did at the front half of the year again if they want to fight. So that's where I sort of see them stagnating a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm also not sure, like I feel like they had a season in the back end where like everything went right for them. Like it was kind of perfection. So I don't see them having everything go right, I suppose. As far as like, they had the rising star, Murphy Reed comes in, basically becomes a new player for them. Shea Bolton did really well in his first season. Voss did really well. So I don't know where the growth comes from, I suppose is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think there's still a lot of growth there. I think Hayden Young could still be considered that because he hasn't got on the park consistently. So it's a little bit like the Will Day argument. I also think that Josh Tracy definitely has some upside in that team. I think that, Murphy Reed might not improve dramatically, but I think there's still a lot of young players in that team that can raise the bar a little bit. I think from a talent point of view, Fremantle's just about there. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Having said that, as you say, I wouldn't describe how they played at their best as a real surgical team that can really beat teams with their method. It felt like, I won't use the term vibes because I don't, like that might sound bad coming from me. But what I would say is that it was almost as though they played with a relentlessness when it was needed to get these big results, come from behind, beat Port Adelaide, beat Hawthorn in Perth. That performance against the Bulldogs was sensational. And it just looked like they were playing twice as hard as the Bulldogs on that day. And I admire that. And I think when they get deep into finals, that skill is going to come in handy. Does it guarantee them if they continue to play like that and be inconsistent, which I'd argue they kind of were, that there was a patch earlier in the season, it wasn't great, it's not going to translate to a top 4 finish. Yeah. So in summary, I also have them 6th. Yeah,
I think I agree with everything there, and probably you said it a little bit more eloquently than I did. Even that Gold Coast Suns game that they lost, like they were right on the edge. They started that game really poorly, got too far behind. The vibes kicked in the second half. I know I keep using the word vibes now. I can't stop it. And then they nearly overran them. Yeah,
that's true. I think probably just not a weakness, but maybe an immaturity, I suppose, compared to these teams that like go deep into finals consistently. Fremantle had such an amazing win the week before, and then there was a bye, and then they have to get themselves up for a game they're the favourites of at home. Yeah. I do wonder if I think I said that during the week. I was like, Freo might be vulnerable here. Didn't start the game well, then lifted and nearly won the game, but it wasn't a particularly strong performance. In summary, I think they're coming. They're in the mix for maybe an outside chance for the top 4, but I had them in 6th.
Yep. Agree with that. 5th, I have got the Gold Coast Suns.
I have the Brisbane Lions.
Wow. Okay, you better go first there because I feel like that's a bit more of an outlier.
There's absolutely no argument for why Brisbane won't be an outstandingly strong team. It's more around the idea that, okay, I suppose first of all, to make a point around their recruits, we could use the same logic with St Kilda in that it might not gel straight away. You know what I mean? Like they got on just fine with Logan Morris and Ty Gallup, and bringing in Draper and Allen could make it a little bit tougher. Having said that, I don't think it matters at all where Brisbane finish. I think there might be a little bit of an emulation of the Richmond side that won 3 premierships from 3rd. Brisbane have done it from 5th. It only takes them being a little bit sloppy again to start the season for them to not finish in the top 4. I still think they're probably the premiership favourite. But for me, I don't think they're going to put as much emphasis on finishing first than some other clubs than a Gold Coast, for instance. And therefore, I think there's a chance they slip out a little bit. So that's my pick. But I still think they're probably the best team. And
I think they'll still aim for the top 4, though. I agree with everything that you said.
True. Yeah.
They're not going to be a team that comes through and, I don't know, we've seen in the past teams like Geelong in really good seasons and won pretty much every game. Essendon back in 2000, just the one loss. Like, it's not going to be that kind of a season, but it's just hard to see them not just pumping teams at the Gabba at times.
Yeah. I don't think they'll not try to finish in the 4, but if they're coasting a little bit, it only takes one slip up to miss 4.
Yeah. And they haven't been clinical throughout these 2 premierships that they won, where they do come from 5th in 24.
24, yep.
And then in 25, they came from 3rd. So it's they haven't been outstanding seasons by any means, but if anything, I think the players that they've brought in are upgrades on what they already had. So, and the difference for me between what I said about St Kilda and needing that time to gel in with those guys, Brisbane are a lot more mature and a lot more ready and have had those experiences. So I don't think it'll be as difficult for them to bed those guys into the team. So I had them a little bit higher, and if I skip forward to that and just tell you where I had them, it was 2nd.
Yeah, I mean, there's no real justification needed to put Brisbane 2nd. If anything, I'm the one going rogue here, but I like being
That's
a
what
bit
I thought
of
you just. So I went Gold Coast Suns in that 5th position.
Yeah, okay.
Which is, I guess, it's a slight step up on where they were. I think they finished 7th. I think someone put it in the comments before. It was actually Giants that finished 5th.
Yes,
they went up with a late win and they played Hawthorn 8th.
Yeah, my mistake. I said the opposite before.
Yeah, but it's it was a log jam in there.
Yeah,
100%. So I think the Suns will improve, but I don't think that they'll get quite enough there to go into that top 4. When you're looking at teams right in the top end of the ladder, I just don't think they have quite as much overall. And they're still a young side. I think people forget that. Even though the talent's there, these guys, Zeke Hewland and Lombard and Patterson and all these gun players, like they're not going to move the needle quite yet.
Agreed on that point. I have the Gold Coast Suns 3rd. I think that everything you said is true. They do have Petrarca coming in. And Jamara, I suppose, could be a real wild card there. Bit of a free swing, that one.
I do forget about Jamara.
Yeah, he's a free swing. So, if it clicks for them, they're even more dangerous. I don't think they're like locked on to win the premiership or anything. I still think still need to mature as well. But they were pretty close to finishing top 4 this season and faltered in a slightly immature performance against Port Adelaide. Was it they lost to Port Adelaide?
Oh, yeah. No, they won, didn't they? Did they win that game? No, they did. No, it was Hinkley's final game.
Yeah. They lost to Port Adelaide. So,
of course.
They were close there this year and then they won a final, albeit they only won by 1 point. I think they'll win enough games to finish 3rd. I don't think that's too rogue. I don't think they win the premiership next year.
There's not much of a difference between 5th and 3rd.
No, it can be a behind.
Yeah,
to be honest.
I suppose I've probably gone a little bit safe with both Gold Coast and Freo. I just sort of have them stagnating around that kind of same area there.
Yeah.
So the top 4, who have you got just sneaking in?
The Sydney Swans.
Okay.
I am a big fan of their talent profile and their top end talent. I agree everything around structure, but they did address that with Charlie Curnow. It remains to be seen whether their backline will hold up, but I mean, I don't think they had a particularly well structured team in 2024. And I don't see any reason they can't emulate that. I think when they got their players back a little bit this year and their confidence back, they played some really good footy. They won at the Gabba. They beat Fremantle twice over the course of the season. And I think there is a good team waiting to happen. Is it balanced enough to win a premiership? I don't know. But they are too good to not finish high. I reckon with a clean injury run, Sydney top 4.
Yeah, if you had said one thing that Sydney needed to do in the off-season, it was bring in some more talent to the key position stocks, and you pretty much got the best player in the competition in Charlie Curnow. So they fixed that. Jai Sarong, I think, is a great pickup just to add a little bit of depth to that defense. And I do think he will get into that team.
Mm-hmm.
Sydney are almost the inverse to me of what I said about Freo, where in that late run, everything seemed to go right. I feel like at the beginning of the season for Sydney, just like nothing went right for them.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a complete disaster. New coach, everything was a mess. Couldn't get guys that they needed to on the park. They'll get those guys back. They get Curnow to kick goals from in the forward half of the ground. And I just see they're going to be that team that goes from like 10th to 4th or whatever.
Yeah.
So I have them. Where did you have them?
I had them 4th.
You had them 4th? I had them 3rd.
Yeah. Fair enough. Not too much to distinguish there. So I think I'm remaining with my top 2 rather. And have you announced who you had in 4th?
In 4th, I had Hawthorn.
Yeah.
Which you haven't actually talked about yet.
I haven't. Interesting, isn't it?
I just see them going. They obviously finished 8th last year, but as we said, in that log jam, so it could have been a lot higher. I think they were even in line for 4th at some point in that moment of the season.
Yeah.
an interesting team. They're a little bit different to some of the other sides that we've talked about, like the Gold Coast Suns and Freo, where they don't really have that exceptional midfield. They have assets in different areas, but I actually think overall, when you look at successful teams recently, they've probably got a more balanced team with the hybrid defenders, the running defenders, the transition football that they play, the small forwards ahead of the ball. They would have really liked to have gotten in another midfielder, I think, and that is still a questionable area for them. But with Will Day coming back, he's an absolute blue chip superstar. If he stays fit for this season, they will definitely finish in the top 4.
I like it. I had Hawthorn as my minor premiers. I think they were pretty close to the mark already this year. I think they faltered a little bit in the home and away season. I want to say there was a mid-year slump, and it was a year that was unforgiving for those kinds of drop-offs. It made you, where they finished 8th, I think that was not reflective of the team Hawthorn were. And they won 2 finals and made a prelim.
They were a top 4 side.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that they needed a little time to bed down their new defensive structure. And I think there is upside within the team. Okay, maybe if they'd recruited Merritt, this would be an easier case to make. But Will Day playing a full season, which is obviously, we're guessing if that happens. And Josh Weddle, the upside there. Jai Newcomb, I think, is really, again, starting to come into his own with his strong final series. And there's just the quality role players and the IQ and the game style that they play.
Kicking.
Yeah, I just think it's going to be enough. I don't think they're that far off. And that is who I predicted.
I feel like those teams too, like a Hawthorn, the distribution of talent for them, like we talk about these teams that have really, really good midfields, but when the finals kick around, guys like Jai Newcomb, who feel, B+ players in home and away football, they become A+ players in finals. And then all of the transition football that they play in the ground ball stuff, they have all the assets for that, particularly in the forward half. So I like it. I can see it happening. I had them a little bit lower though. Should I reveal my top? Or do you want to knock off your 2 and 3?
So in third, I did discuss them already, but we'll put the Gold Coast Suns.
Yep.
I think it's just about time for them. And the only other team left, if you're able to work it out, is the Geelong Football Club, who I think is the only team you have left.
It is, and I've gone them for the minor premiers.
Yeah, talk us through that. I mean, we'd probably have the same opinion. I just put them second and you put them first.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really see them getting any worse from last season. I think they're going to win a lot of games at GMHBA. Again, I haven't done this forensically with the fixture.
No, of course.
So they might have like the most disgusting draw we've ever seen. I don't know about that.
Doubt it.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like they're such a well-run club that they're going to put themselves in the line to win as many games as they possibly can every season. Whether they can go all the way and win the premiership, I don't necessarily think they can. I think they'd probably still need to add something. And there is some question marks, I guess, on some of those older players. But they also have just sneakily chucked in a lot of youth into that team as we've kind of come along. Like Ollie Dempsey, I reckon we haven't seen the best of him. He could go to another level in 2026, those kind of players. SDK is another one I think that they haven't really got a lot out of over the last couple of seasons.
Warple comes in to bolster the midfield, if not as a true A-grader, still probably support there.
Yep. And Harley Barker comes back from that knee in about round 12 and then wins the Brownlow.
Yes. Not the Rising Star, though.
The Brownlow.
Yeah, just the Brownlow. Cool.
Yes.
So the way I had it, I had my finals. My wildcard weekend would be Adelaide-Collingwood. Adelaide-Collingwood.
Yeah.
And Bulldogs and GWS. That'd be the first wildcard weekend in my scenario.
So what was it? Adelaide?
Adelaide v Collingwood. So a qualifying final replay.
Yep.
And the Bulldogs hosting GWS at maybe the G, or maybe they do that at Marvel. I'm not sure.
So then the two teams that win through that would then go into the normal final system, right?
Yeah.
It's just an extra week of knockout football there.
Yeah.
And then it would be like, say, for example, Adelaide and the Dogs won. They would then play Brisbane in your scenario.
Yep. The Bulldogs would go to the Gabba and Adelaide would go to Optus to play Fremantle.
Yep. Love it.
Yeah, what about you? You would have had the Bulldogs hosting Collingwood, probably at the G in a home game, and then Adelaide hosting the Giants.
Oh, so we had essentially the same thing, really.
Similar teams, but different venues, I think.
Different venues.
No, same venues. Exact same venues.
Exactly the same.
I got the opposite.
Oh,
the
dear.
Opposite of that.
That is our 2026 AFL ladder predictions as of, what are we at, November 22nd.
Let's give you the grand final. I'm going to say Hawthorn beats Sydney in the grand final.
Hawthorn beats Sydney. I like Sydney. Sydney-Brisbane.
Nice.
Rematch of 2023.
Same result, 24.
24, sorry.
Same
Yeah.
result?
Same result.
3-peat for the Lions?
Sydney win.
Really?
Isaac Heaney, Norm.
That would be quite the narrative if they flipped the script from 2 years ago.
Yep.
Yeah.
That'd be huge.